Shalom everyone and welcome. Chag Sameach, still Hanukkah. And it's nice to have an opportunity to study a little bit of Torah. But this class is going to be a little bit different. I'm on holidays. So this is a pre-recorded class. That means that I'm not checking the chat today, but it doesn't mean that you cannot use it. Please use the chat. You can still communicate with each other and talk among yourselves of whatever I'm saying here. It's nice that you can share your comments. You shouldn't make comments just for me. You can also comment among yourself and just share whatever you think about everything that I say and whatever the Torah is saying for this week. And remember, if this is the first time that you're catching one of our streams, remember to subscribe to our channel. Click the subscribe button and then the little bell so you will be notified every time we go live or every time we upload something. And if you're on Facebook, if you're on the Share Zedek Facebook page, the way to subscribe is to like the page. And that will be the way to tell Facebook that you're interested in everything we do. So please subscribe so we can stay in touch and you could be notified every time we go live or every time we upload something to the internet. And this week's Parasha is Miketz. It's the continuation of the life of Joseph. Last week we read that Joseph interpreted successfully two dreams in jail. One was the dream of Pharaoh's butler, and the other one was the dream of Pharaoh's baker. And Joseph said, the meaning of your dreams is that you, Mr. Baker, are going to die for what you did, and you, Mr. Butler, are going to find innocent, and you're going to go back to Pharaoh, and you're going to continue serving him the way you did before. And that's exactly what happened. So now Joseph made himself a reputation of being very good at interpreting dreams. That reminds me to a joke, by the way, that it was on Valentine's Day, and the wife tells her husband, he said, honey, I had a dream. I dreamed with a diamond ring. What do you think that means? And he said to her, oh, wait until tonight. And tonight you will know. Oh, she gets so excited. And then at night they had this fancy dinner with candles, with wine. And he gives her a box. She opens the box all excited and it's a book called The Meaning of the Dreams. Well, going back to the Parasha, we have Joseph that he was very good at interpreting dreams. And because he was so successful, he told the butler before the butler left jail, going back to palace, said, please don't forget about me. Look, I interpreted your dreams. So when you see somebody in palace, please let me know that I'm still here. They forgot about me. Nobody remembers that I'm in jail. So please let them know. And that was pretty much the end of last week's Parasha. So we picked up the story for this week. And it says, let me open here. It says, ויהי מקץ שנתיים ימים ופרעה חולם והנה עומד על היאור. And at the end of 2 years, so 2 years after that dream, Pharaoh had a dream. He had his own dream. And he was standing beside the Nile River. Remember the dream? The 7 fat cows eating this, and the 7 thin cows eating the fat cows. And Pharaoh was very disturbed for that dream. I don't know why, because if I dream with 7 cows, I mean, it wouldn't be a big deal for me. That's just me. But for Pharaoh, that was something that he couldn't deal with. So he asked every wise person in Egypt, what does this dream mean? Nobody knew. And then the butler said, I remember this guy from jail. He's a Hebrew. He knows how to interpret dreams. In fact, he did it with me and the baker. And then remember the story. Pharaoh said, okay, bring him here. I want to meet the guy. But before we go there, we have this interpretation of the opening sentence. ויהי מקץ שנתיים ימים. Because the rabbis are kind of puzzled of why this 2 years buffer in between Joseph helping the butler and the Pharaoh having his own dream. Because basically it could happen right after and the butler will still remember Joseph. We don't have to wait 2 years. So the rabbi thinks that this 2 years happened for a reason. Was something else that had to happen either in Egypt or to Joseph to justify those 2 extra years. And I would like to talk to you about some theories that the rabbis present of why we have those 2 extra years in between the dream of the butler and the baker and the dream of Pharaoh. Okay, so let's go to the next text. And we have Rabbi Zev Wolf Winhor of Vilna, that he is interpreting a verse of Proverbs as saying that is connected to the life of Joseph. You see, in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23, it says, V'chol etzev yeh motar, u'devar sefatayim ach le'machzor. The translation is, in all work, etzev, in this context, is translated as work. In all work, there is profit, but mere talk produces only poverty. But this rabbi says, etzev is work, but could also mean mourning or worry, as we will see in the second book of Samuel, chapter 19, verse 3. Thus, the verse alludes to the fact that Joseph gained through his difficulties. What does it mean? Let's see, before we talk about that, you see, this is the verse that Rabbi Zev Wolf Winhorn of Vilna is talking about. This is the verse from Samuel, where he says, thus the victory that the day was turned into mourning for all the people, for the people heard it said that that day the king was grieving for his son. And grieving, you can see there, netzav, same root. So netzav or etzev could be work, but could also be something, some kind of tribulation that you have to go through. Something that is uncomfortable, something that presents certain difficulties. So why would this rabbi connect in that verse of Proverbs with the life of Joseph? Well, because he was trying to understand something the Midrash Rabbah presents. And it's as following. Midrash Rabbah will say that those 2 extra years were beneficial for Joseph. Why was it beneficial? Because as a result of that suffering, he took his daughter as a wife. The Pharaoh's. There's an interpretation whose daughter he took. But one is that it was Pharaoh's daughter as a wife. But on account of that which Joseph said to the chamberlain or the butler of the cupbearers, 2 years were added for him to his incarceration. So the Midrash Rabbah is presenting 2 different things here. One is that those 2 years were beneficial because after that, those 2 extra years that he stayed there and he kept excelling and giving his best, as a result of that, he was rewarded with marrying this woman that maybe, I don't know, maybe she was too young 2 years before, or who knows what, but those 2 years were important for Joseph to marry that woman. But there is this other interpretation that it says that actually the 2 extra years were not intended to be added, but because of what Joseph said to the butler, those 2 extra years were added as a punishment to Joseph. How so? Well, it's very interesting. Let's see what was exactly that Joseph said to the butler that deserve to be punished with 2 extra years in jail. Let's see. Well, you can see there what the Genesis 41:45 is talking about when he married this woman, Osnat, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. Okay, but the other one I wanna concentrate on Genesis 40:14. That it says, "But remember me." This is Joseph talking to the butler. Okay, "Remember me when it goes well with you, and show me kindness, please, and mention me to Pharaoh, so that he will release me from prison." We will say, okay, what's wrong with that, right? Remember me and mention me to Pharaoh. What's wrong with that? Well, the rabbi said, actually, there is something wrong about it. And let's see what they have to say. Rabbi Chaim Brisker posed the following question to a young student of his. The future famed Rabbi Shimon Shkop. Had Joseph made only one request from the chamberlain of the cupbearers, how many years would have been added to his term in prison? So here, basically what this rabbi is saying, let's go back to the previous text, he said because Joseph asked 2 things to the butler, remember me and mention me to Pharaoh, because he asked for 2 things, 2 years were added. Okay? In other words, it's almost like he's implying that he shouldn't have asked anything, right? If you trust in God, what do you have to beg a human being to do something for you? And because he failed to trust in God twice, remember me, mention me twice, 2 years were added. So now this rabbi is asking to his student the following questions. Had Joseph made only one request from the chamberlain of the cupbearers, how many years would have been added to his term in prison? So Rabbi Shimon answered that since 2 requests were punishable with 2 years of imprisonment, it follows that for 1 request, Joseph would have been liable for 1 extra year. Is that logic? Wouldn't you say the same thing? Well, Rabbi Chaim demurred. Rather, had Joseph made only 1 request, he would have not been liable at all, and nothing would have been added to his term of imprisonment. Rabbi Chaim based his assertion on the explanation of his father. Joseph was punished for excessive reliance on the chamberlain. Excessive reliance. It is possible that such excess was expressed only in his double request. Had he made only a single request of the chamberlain, he may have been deemed good and proper, and he would not have been punished at all. But he has slipped from his pinnacle of emunah, of faith, and he was thus punished for both requests. This is a fascinating thing, because basically what the rabbis are saying here is that, yes, we have to have faith in God. We have to believe that God is with us, God is protecting us, and God is working on our behalf in the background, even when we are not aware of that. But it doesn't mean that we have to do nothing. We can't just sit and meditate 24/7. We still have to live our lives, and certain things has to be done by us. We have to take the initiative, we have to make phone calls, we have to pay bills, we have to go to work. We have to raise the family, we have to educate our kids. We can't say, no, God is going to do everything for me. That's not the way it works. But what he's saying here is that there is a fine line in between doing things and trying to outsmart God, or to sometimes even to cheat our way to success. There is a certain point when you said, oh, maybe I should stretch this, or I should light here because that will give me an edge. No, that's not the way it should work. You should always take the high road. Even when it looks like maybe, the odds are not in your favor if you do that. But as a Jew, you should know that that's what you should do. And that's when you invite God to show up in your life, when you do your part in a proper way. But trying to do everything ourselves and twisting things on our favor is a sign that you don't trust in God, that you think that God doesn't have the power to do anything in your life, so you have to do it yourself no matter how. So Joseph should have known better, because as a hero of the Torah, he should be an example and a role model for the generation. I guess that's why he was punished so harshly, to make a point. So we can learn that story and to read that story and learn to trust God. But trusting God doesn't mean that you shouldn't do anything. Trusting God means that you still have to do your part, but you have to do it the proper way. You have to do certain things, but there is a point when you have to take the hands out of the wheel and past certain limit. You have to let God drive in your life. Somebody said to me once that the way you do it is you give your 100%. After that, it's not up to you anymore, and you have to let God do his part. So it's a very interesting concept. So talking about that, I would like to talk to you a little bit about faith, about emunah. And the one who probably wrote most extensively about emunah and about faith and Judaism was Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, which I'm going to mention in a minute. But before that, I would like to present to you a text from one of his one of the experts in this generation of the writings of Nachman of Breslov. I'm talking about Rabbi Shalom Arush. He's an Israeli rabbi. Actually, I think he's French, but he moved to Israel. And he wrote a book, beautiful book. It's called The Garden of Emunah, or The Garden of Faith. And he says that actually faith, or emunah, has 3 levels. We always have to try to go to the highest level, but you can't go just to the 3rd level of emunah. You have to work your way through each one of them. First, you start with the basic or entry level of emunah, what he called the belief in divine providence. If you can believe that everything is coming from God, that's faith. That's emunah, but that's an entry level. Why? Because I know many people that they believe that everything is coming from God, but they still believe that there are certain things that they are bad. Which is, they cannot see the goodness on everything that God does. Nevertheless, they believe that everything is coming from God, but they still struggle to see the good in certain things. That's why I said, after you work that first level, the entry level of emunah, believing in the divine providence, then you can start open up yourself to the second level, which is that not just believing in divine providence, but believing that everything God does is for the very best. This is when you start seeing the goodness on everything. Or even if you don't see it, you trust. It's like a gut feeling that you trust that everything that God does, even though I don't understand it, but I believe it and I can feel it, that is all for the very best. And then you have to stay there for a while, struggling and debating within yourself until you truly understand this concept. It takes years sometimes to be able to handle this level, because sometimes it could be very overwhelming. And sometimes when we fail to see the good in certain situations, we end up going back to the first level, or some people, lose their faith, their emunah, because they said, I can't believe that God is in this. And then it's when you literally lose your faith. But if you're strong and you keep moving forward with the concept that everything God does is for the very best, then Rabbi Arush would say, eventually, maybe you can reach the third level, the highest level, which is everything God does is for specific purpose. Not only that is for the very good, but this is when you can see why. Now you can see the purpose of everything that happens to you, because this is a personal emunah. I'm not talking about what's happening in the world in general. This is what's happening to you. This is when you reach a point in life when you can start almost like reading God's messages on everything that is happening to you. But Rabbi Arush will say you can't go from level 1 to level 3. It doesn't work that way. You cannot go to level 3 overnight. It takes time and it takes spiritual work until you can reach that level. A level that, according to the rabbis, was Joseph's level. That's why he's criticized so much when he said what he said to the butler. He should have known better. And nevertheless, Rabbi said, one request is fine. It's almost expected. You shouldn't just stay there hoping that God is going to do all the work. No, he did his part. He said to the butler, remember me when you leave. Right? That's it. But not, he felt, you know what, remember me, please, tell Pharaoh to get me out of here. Well, you can imagine the situation. That's why it was considered that he failed on this test of emunah. So let's go back to Rabbi Arush. He said, why did I put God here? Let me correct this. It says, a person with upper level emunah is constantly asking, what does God want for me? Such a person's thought is logical and straightforward as follows. First, observation. God exposes me to a certain event or experience in order to convey a message to teach me something. And then there's the interpretation. I should do my best to relate to God's message to something in my life that needs reinforcement or improvement. In other words, God is putting you through situations, so hopefully through those situations, you can start a process of self-evaluation, and then you realize, oh, God is sending me this so I can learn and change that. And then you have an implementation. After you understand that, either I need to correct a bad habit, atone for a transgression, strengthen my service for God in a particular area, or to awaken from my spiritual slumber, and so forth. So it's not just understanding, but it's doing something about it. It's an opportunity that God give us to change something in our lives. Simple as that. And basically, as I said, Rabbi Arush, it's not that he came out with this. It's not his philosophy. He learned it from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. This is what Rabbi Nachman of Breslov had to say. We must all make an ongoing effort to observe the divine wisdom in everything and to connect ourselves to the divine wisdom in everything. When we do, the divine wisdom of a particular creation or event illuminates our brains and soul, drawing us closer to God. But one who neither observes nor connects oneself to the divine wisdom of a particular creation or event resembles Esau, who scorned the birthright. So in other words, what the rabbis are implying here is that Joseph went first place to jail for so many years because there was something in jail for him to learn. Maybe he needed, because you see, his purpose, the divine purpose for him, was amazing. He was destined to be Egypt's viceroy. It's almost like saying Egypt's prime minister. That was his destiny. But hey, if you have to be the viceroy of Egypt or the prime minister of a country, you can't just do it. You have to prepare yourself. There are certain skills that you have to learn. So maybe Joseph had to learn how to improve his Egyptian, to talk to his people. Maybe he has to learn about the Egyptian culture, and it's something that he could learn in jail. Maybe he needs to polish his organization skills, because one of the things that we are going to read in the Torah is that Joseph became the manager of the jail. Perhaps something that he learned there was fundamental to be the one managing Egypt when they have to store food for 7 years to be prepared for the famine for the next 7 years, and so forth. Maybe those extra 2 years were important for him to strengthen the emunah, because otherwise he may have failed as a viceroy whenever a difficulty came his way. So, in other words, we're saying the whole process, even though when we read the Torah it seems to be unfair and painful for Joseph, it was necessary to prepare him for this great destiny that was in store for him. It's almost like the rabbis are implying here, and this is something that applies for each one of you, is that the bigger the challenges that you are facing, the greatest the destiny that is waiting for you. If we follow the story of Joseph, that he has to go through so much, but he had to be prepared and ready to be the viceroy of Egypt. Let's keep reading. You see, what happened is then Pharaoh summoned Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. He shaved himself, changed his clothes, and came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream. There is no one who can interpret it, but I've heard it said about you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, it isn't me. God will give Pharaoh an answer that will set his mind at peace. Did Joseph change or not? Now we see in these words total emunah, total faith, to the point that he's saying to Pharaoh, who is almost, it's believed that back in the time in Egypt, pharaohs were believed to be gods. So if you said to God, no, it won't be me, the one telling you the interpretation, but it's going to be Elohim, referring to not Pharaoh, a different God. That was gutsy to say that. But he said it anyway, because now, maybe thanks to those extra 2 years, he learned the lesson of emunah, and now he trusts God. He knows that if God put him there, Pharaoh won't do anything to him. And that's exactly what happened. He became the viceroy of Egypt. But and the other thing that the rabbis are amazed about this and how fast it happened. When Pharaoh said, I need somebody to interpret my dream, and the butler said, Joseph is in jail. I said, go quickly, bring it here, shave him, put it there, boom, 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 boom. Within a day, he was the viceroy of Egypt. And sometimes life happens like that. That we get so many challenges and so many difficulties, and then one day, it's almost like God is breathing in our direction, and we go from the back to the front in a second. So we never know. Our mission is to do our best, to give our 100%, and then to trust in God. And when the time is right, things are going to happen. That is one of the principles of emunah, principles of faith. So, see what it says. this is the Torah lessons to us regarding the profundity of the education we receive in our formative years. Joseph was so imbued with the knowledge that God is the one who gave him the ability to interpret the dreams that he did not even consider any aforementioned concern. The education which he received from his parents was such that even though he left home at 17 years of age, he held fast to their teachings. From this, we can see the deep roots which we can cultivate in children that even the strongest winds cannot uproot. So this is now a teaching for parents if you want to raise kids with strong emunah, that the message of emunah should start from early ages at home. And this is something that maybe it's a waste of time. Maybe we should wait until the kids are a little older. No. It's never too early to learn that as religious Jews, we should do two things. Number one is trusting in God, but that's not all. Number two, we have to work hard and to do our best. What could be wrong about that? We are not saying you don't have to do anything. You know what? You're a religious person, God will do everything for you. That's not the message at all. The message that we should teach our children, but also to learn ourselves, is that a proper way to live a life in a Jewish way is to develop both aspects. The spiritual aspect, and to strengthen our connection with God, and also to learn that that's not an excuse for stopping doing our best. The two things have to be together, and the two things have to be present in our life. So with that said, remember that I said that when Joseph in jail, he mentioned two things to the butler and he was punished for that. Well, you will see that after Pharaoh brought him out of jail, and after Joseph interpreted the dreams of the 7 cows, etc., and said that that means that it's going to be 7 years of abundance and 7 years of famine, and you should store food during the 7 years of abundance so you will have enough to eat during the 7 years of famine. Joseph said to Pharaoh, well, therefore Pharaoh should look for a man both discreet and wise to put in charge of the land of Egypt. You see, once again, Joseph requested salvation from a fellow human. Did Joseph not learn his lesson during his 2 years in prison? Well, of course he did. Because this is a single request. He's not begging Pharaoh. He's not trying to sneak his way into palace. He did his part. All what he did is to plant this seed on Pharaoh's head. Pharaoh should look for a man. Of course, Joseph was talking about himself, right? But no, he said, Pharaoh should look for a man both discreet and wise to put in charge of the land of Egypt. Period. That's it. He didn't say, it's me, you won't find anybody else. Look around you. All these people that they call themselves wise men, they couldn't even interpret your dreams. Are you going to trust them? Of course not. He didn't trash them. He didn't do Lashon Hara. He didn't gossip about other people in Egypt to make him look better. No, but he said, Pharaoh should look for a person that is proper for this job. And of course, Pharaoh was even more impressed with Joseph after he spoke that way, and Joseph became the viceroy of Egypt. You see, we know that Joseph did learn that God exclusively controls the success and destiny of all the world's inhabitants, as evidenced by his reply to Pharaoh's request. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I dreamt a dream, but no one can interpret it. Now I heard it said of you that you comprehend a dream to interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, this is beyond me. It is God who will respond with Pharaoh's welfare. Indeed, by stating so unequivocally that he played no active role in the deciphering of the dream, he completely undermined the misconception that you comprehend a dream to interpret it, likely destroying his last opportunity to ever be released from prison. By doing so, demonstrated the completeness of his dependence on a divine resolution to his crisis, negating all reliances on his own action, working with within this mindset. Joseph's suggestion to Pharaoh regarding the viceroy did not constitute a breach. A lack of faith, a lack of emunah, is not demonstrated by a particular action, but by the mindset behind that action. Giving Pharaoh the opportunity to release him while maintaining completely unswerving reliance on divine kindness is indeed the embodiment of exhibiting faith in God. In other words, it's all about your mindset. It's all about developing a mindset of trusting God at the same time that we do our best in life. So this is the message that I wanted to bring with you. As I mentioned before, shorter class. I guess that's fine. Once in a while we can study for less than an hour. Feel free to comment among yourself what you think about emunah, what you think about faith, about trusting in God, and about doing our best and combining the two together. I don't know if you ever anything that we talk about today ever happens to you. Okay, so once again, thank you so much for taking some time during your busy days to study a little bit of Torah. We believe that God is a rewarder. God takes note of every time you study Torah, and that goes to your credit. So next high holidays, remember, when you're beating your heart, you did something good during the year. You stopped in the middle of the day, week after week, to study Torah. So this is good, not only good for our souls, it's good for our spiritual accounts as well. So remember, next Thursday, there is no Torah L'chaim. It will return, God willing, week after that. But again, still on Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah to all of you. I hope you're having a wonderful celebration of this festival of lights. And again, remember to subscribe to our channel and to hit the bell so you will be notified and you can receive notifications of every time we upload something to the net. Remember to like the video, share it if you want in your social media account so we can reach to even more people. Have a wonderful rest of your day and your week. Stay safe, and I hope to be able to see you soon in person. Bye now. Chag Sameach.